On a day of blazing sun, pounding hooves, and military precision, a young prince's world was about to shrink to a single, overwhelming moment of fear. While millions watched the spectacle of the trooping the color, the most important drama unfolded not with the soldiers or the sovereign, but within the quiet, desperate breaths of a 4-year-old boy. This is the true story of how, in that high-pressure crucible of tradition, a sister's instinctive love cut through the pomp and created a small, powerful lesson in family, empathy, and the unspoken language that exists between siblings. The June morning in London dawned bright and clear, the kind of weather deemed perfect for a grand national spectacle. At Buckingham Palace, the air buzzed with a unique blend of military crispness and familial routine. For Prince Louis of Wales, just 4 years old, the day known as Trooping the Colour was a confusing tapestry of unfamiliar noises, daunting crowds, and strict expectations. Dressed in a smart outfit, his usual boisterous energy was tempered by a sense of solemn occasion he couldn't quite grasp. He was to ride in a carriage with his mother, the Princess of Wales, and his sister, Charlotte. His older brother, George, would be elsewhere, part of the procession on horseback. As they were helped into the elaborate carriage, the weight of the day settled. The windows framed a sea of faces, a cacophony of cheers, and camera clicks already beginning to rise from them all. Princess Charlotte, a year older and with more experience of these public duties, sat with a composed posture that mirrored her mother's. But her eyes were not on the waiting crowds. They were on Louis. She saw the way his small hands fidgeted in his lap, the slight widening of his eyes as the carriage began its jerky forward motion, pulled by the impeccably trained horses. The noise was immense. The marching bands, the shouted orders, the roar of the public. For Louis, it was a wall of sound. He pressed closer to his mother, who offered soothing words and a steadying arm. But her role required her to acknowledge the crowds, to smile and wave. Charlotte watched as a particular boom from Soldier's gun made Louis flinch violently, his lower lip beginning to tremble. The confident, playful boy from the nursery was receding, replaced by a child on the verge of overwhelmed tears. The carriage ride was a slow journey through a storm of sensation. Louis buried his face in his mother's side at one point, but the protocol of the day meant he had to sit up to be seen. Charlotte continued her quiet surveillance. She remembered her own moments of uncertainty at such events, the feeling of being very small in a very big, loud world. A natural protectiveness, a deep sisterly understanding stirred within her. This was more than just a shared duty. This was her brother in distress. As they approached the Horse Guards parade, the epicenter of the ceremony, the military music swelled to a deafening peak. Louis's composure was fraying like a worn thread. Their mother, though attentive, was the focus of millions of lenses. It was in this critical moment that Charlotte made a decision. She would not just be a princess in a carriage. She would be a sister first. The carriage settled into its designated spot at the edge of the parade ground. Before them, a breathtaking display of military discipline unfolded. Ranks of soldiers in scarlet tunics moved as one. Horses pranced, and brass instruments flashed in the sunlight. For Louis, it was sensory overload. The first tear escaped, tracing a clean path down his cheek. He was trying so hard to be brave, to do what was expected, but the fear was winning. It was then that Charlotte leaned in. She didn't simply pat his hand or whisper a quick, "It's okay." She engaged him fully, turning her body towards his, creating a small, intimate bubble within the grandeur. Her face, which moments before had been a picture of royal poise, softened into an expression of pure, empathetic conspiracy. She began to talk to him, her words lost to the crowds and cameras but clear to Louis. She likely pointed not at the intimidating soldiers, but perhaps at the shiny helmets, the horses' plumes, turning the frightening spectacle into a series of interesting details. Her gestures were gentle and inclusive. Then came the masterstroke. She placed her small, white-gloved hand over his, which was gripping the carriage window ledge. It was not a passive touch. It was a firm, anchoring pressure. She was sharing the moment, bearing the weight of the noise with him. She demonstrated how to wave to the crowd, not as a royal obligation, but as a game, a way to connect with the friendly faces in the distance rather than focusing on the scary noises up close. Louis, his eyes locked on hers, listened. The tears stopped. He watched her face, a mirror of calm assurance. He tentatively waved back at the crowd, then looked back at her for confirmation. A small, shaky smile appeared on his face, met by Charlotte's broader, encouraging grin. The connection was absolute. He was no longer alone in his fear. He had a guide, a protector, his sister. This quiet intervention lasted several minutes, a lifetime within the rigid schedule of the ceremony. The Princess of Wales, observing this beautiful exchange, allowed it to happen, her own smile reflecting a mix of maternal pride and profound relief. Charlotte had instinctively done what no protocol officer could have choreographed. She had translated a frightening experience into something manageable for her little brother. She showed him, through her own calm demeanor, that they were safe, that this was something they could experience together. Louis's posture changed. The tense, hunched shoulders relaxed. He began to look around with a dawning curiosity rather than sheer panic, his hand remaining under Charlotte's. The sisterly power was not one of dominance, but of partnership. She had lent him her courage until he could find his own. As the ceremony reached its climax and the royal family prepared to appear on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, the dynamic between the siblings had fundamentally shifted. Louis, once overwhelmed, now walked with a newfound, if still tentative, confidence. The balcony, facing a vast sea of flag-waving supporters, was another daunting arena. The roar that greeted their appearance was thunderous, and, for a second, Louis's earlier anxiety flickered across his face. But this time, the solution was already in place. Charlotte, standing beside him, immediately leaned close, her head tilting towards his. She was again speaking, explaining, likely about the planes that were soon to scream across the sky in the fly past. She made it a point of excitement, not fear. When the iconic red Arrows jets streaked across the London sky, leaving trails of red, white, and blue, Louis's reaction was not of hands-over-ears terror, but of wonder. He pointed, his face lit with amazement. Charlotte smiled, sharing in his joy, her job as his anchor complete for the day. The photographs from that balcony tell the whole story. A relieved and happy little boy, and a sister who looks not just poised but quietly satisfied. She had done more than prevent a public moment of upset. She had helped her brother navigate a personal challenge. The sisterly power Charlotte displayed was a blend of empathy, maturity, and pure love. It was a lesson in leadership of the most relatable kind, the leadership of an older sibling who sees a need and quietly, effectively meets it. In the days that followed, the world celebrated not just the pomp of the trooping, but this beautiful, human moment within it. People saw not just a princess, but a kind and caring sister. They saw not just a prince, but a little boy who overcame his fears with his best ally by his side. The story resonated because it was universal.